year, which seems like a very reasonable rate, must be something wrong with him. But again, that goes to I've lost my belief in the infallibility of the Spurs, whatever, military industrial complex.
Yeah, and I mean, Kyle Anderson is not exactly, he's not Kawhi Leonard, and the Grizzlies, as I'm sure you've seen up close, the Grizzlies' offense is like just absolutely terrible when he's on the floor, and he really moves at his own speed, which is for better or worse. But it just kind of, it's interesting, just, his value to one team is just so much more than another. And I guess the Spurs definitely miscalculated his value to them. And they clearly prioritized long-term financial flexibility over retaining a guy who, isn't great, but isn't terrible either.
Yeah. Honestly, he's like my favorite player in the world right now. I was Tony Allen was my favorite player, but I guess he's actually no longer an NBA player, even though I'm still haven't given up hope that he'll reemerge at some point. But Kyle Anderson, I adore him. It's just he's crazy. His dad, Kyle Anderson's dad, after a win against the Pelicans, where I think Kyle Anderson had 19 points, 11 rebounds, 4 assists, 3 blocks, 3 steals, no turnovers. He was like, finally a coaching staff gave the ball to Kyle Anderson and just let him do his thing. First time ever. And I'm like, yeah, let's give it to Kyle. Let Kyle do stuff.
Yeah, I have nothing else to say about Kyle Anderson.
Well, another team that actually has some kind of, maybe you could argue whether they want to blow it up or not. I've seen some of their guys, their reporters and podcasters talking about it, is the Miami Heat, who things aren't going super great this season so far. They have a lot of really big contracts for kind of mediocre to okay players. And then you profiled one of their young guys who's still on a cheap deal, Rodney McGruder. It's a really good article you wrote that was interesting. That seemed to be one of those guys who exemplifies what they consider the Heat culture, like a guy who just grinded for years, put in all the work. And now he's really blossoming this year. But so when you look at that team and with a guy like McGruder going forward, who they have to give a contract to next year if they want to keep him, what do you think that team should do? Do you think the Heat should be looking to offload a bunch of pieces or just stick with it and make that push for a lower seed in the Eastern Conference? What do you think they should be doing?
Yeah, if they could offload some of those contracts, I think they would have already. They're in a really tricky spot. Obviously, I don't think they're really. What they should be doing, long story short, is they should be tanking. I don't know, even if they were to make the playoffs, how dangerous they could be. They just haven't had star power for a few years now, and they play a very interesting brand of basketball on both ends. They can be frenetic, they can play big, they can be super versatile. They play a bunch of lineups that don't have any point guards in them. So, yesterday or a couple days ago when they played, I think they beat the Clippers with basically Justice Winslow playing point guard for a majority of the game, and he looked really well. But there are games where he looks like Justice Winslow. So they're in a situation where, have a lot of really bad contracts. I love Josh Richardson's contract. That's one of the best deals in the league. But to kind of counterbalance that, you've got, Dion Waiters making $30-something million over the next 3 years guaranteed. And, he's been out with an ankle injury forever.
He was out with an ankle injury when they gave him the 3-year contract.
Yeah. So I don't know. They're going to probably be paying Tyler Johnson nearly $20 million next year. Dragic, the same amount. Whiteside's deal is just, that's a monster. And it looks like Bam Adebayo might already be a better basketball player than Hassan Whiteside. So I don't know what they do. You mentioned Rodney McGruder, who's going to be a restricted free agent this summer. I don't know if they're going to be able to keep him, to be honest. We'll see what kind of offers he's get. He's kind of tailed off a little bit since I jinxed him with that piece.
Right.
But he's still a quality basketball player who can do a lot of different things and kind of fits into whatever system, whatever team would be interested in him. I think he could be a good fit. So we'll see what kind of offers he gets this summer. But yeah, the short and long term for this team is pretty depressing unless they get a top 5 pick. So I guess we'll see what happens with them.
They're a team where when I list off their guys on the team, maybe it's just like an NBA hipster thing where I'm like, that guy rules. I'm like, Bam Adebayo, that guy's awesome. James Johnson, that guy's awesome. Josh Richardson, Ronnie Ruger, like Justin Wilson, those guys are great. And then you're like, man, they don't win a whole lot of games. Like, why do they keep losing all these games? Like they shut up their Vice City jerseys. Like they retired them. I don't know if it's permanent, but like they were so freaked out by the fact that they'd been 0-7 in them. They had to switch up their Vice nights. I'm worried for the team. But yeah, I don't know. Like I'm more philosophically on the don't tank necessarily, even though it worked out great for my Grizzlies last year, which wasn't, again, they didn't have a choice. Like one thing, they didn't go into the season thinking you're tanking. I guess at this point, like 20-something games in, the Heat could be like, you know what, we probably should be losing our games. But it's weird because like they're just now hoping to get healthy again. And I guess Pat Riley still trusts the Rings culture to maybe he'll be able to swing a big deal.
Yeah, when you don't have like, any cap space, it's just
right.
It's really tricky. And I thought that they would be a little bit more aggressive with the Jameis Butler sweepstakes. I think they dodged a bullet by holding on to Josh Richardson and not giving him up in that deal. I think the rumor was like Richardson a first and Kelly Olynyk, which that's just like if they gave that up for Jimmy Butler. I love Jimmy Butler, but that's just that would be highway robbery. So yeah, I think philosophically, to tank or not to tank is I'm starting. I used to be very pro tank regardless, and now I'm kind of like I see the value in building something concrete and making the playoffs and being competitive, particularly when you have young, interesting players. And they have a couple in Miami, but I just think that their only path to ever getting out of the first round is adding someone who's a real difference maker in the draft.
Yeah, I think I don't want to get into the big philosophy of to tank or not to tank, but like you look at the Grizzlies who, we've been told we should have blown it up lots of times. And like even the Raptors, people are like the Raptors, you guys should have blown it up because, you flame out in the playoffs so dramatically every year. So I'm maybe it's just a small market mentality of me where I'm like, all right, it's fine. This is I like winning 60% of my games. Like that's fun. We'll worry about the big later. Maybe we get lucky later. The Grizzlies got lucky getting Jaren Jackson Jr. Anyway, finally, last topic. This is like the news du jour, which I sometimes avoid, but this is like my favorite story ever. And it's the Chicago Bulls and Jim Boylen, who thinks he is Norman Dale from Hoosiers come to life. Like he thinks he can win just by if he could just teach these kids some discipline. And it's cracking me up. What do you make of this Bulls near mutiny? And what is the players' response when they just decide the practices are no fun?
This is just a really interesting situation. I mean, I never understood firing Hoiberg to begin with, to be honest. I'll start there. I mean, your expectations coming into this season were what exactly? And
yeah, Vegas had him at 30 games. 30 games, so, and then Chris Dunn got hurt.
So to get rid of they've had injuries. I mean, to get rid of a guy who you never gave him the players that he needs to run the system that you hired him to enact. So I never understood that decision. And then I mean, when you're an interim coach like Boylen, he's interim technically, or
he's I don't know legally. They've never said the term interim. They said he is going to be the permanent coach for the season. They said something weird, really specifically did not say interim.
He's behaving like he has the backing of the front office and ownership, which he has said that he does have, which, I would believe him because he is running these guys into the ground. And you can't coach this way in 2019. It just doesn't work with the fact that just the league is getting so much younger. And, seeing that Robin Lopez was one of the players who I I don't think he spearheaded the decision to, go to the practice facility and kind of announced that they were not actually going to practice, but he was involved heavily, and he was not exactly talking the players out of it. So when you have a veteran like that who's been around and seen a lot, kind of side with his teammates, it was very interesting to me. And I don't know how much longer Boylen stays there. But I mean, the bottom line is this is the most embarrassing story that the NBA's had in quite some time.
I can't get over that. I can't get over that Boylen looked at his team against the Celtics, who, obviously they fell down 17-0, which stinks. But he's like, my starters aren't bringing it. We need to get something better. Like his starters. He's got two rookies, well, pretty much like Ryan Arcidiacono. Well, he's pretty much a rookie. But Ryan Arcidiacono, Wendell Carter, Larry Markkinen, these are brand new players. And then your veterans, quote unquote veterans on that lineup are Justin Holiday and Zach LaVine. It's like these are very young players who don't know what they're doing. The idea, oh yeah, you guys didn't do something right to start this again. The second half, I'm going to pull you all five out. It's just really weird. It's not like. Again, it's not like they were playing, the Suns. I'm trying to think of a worse team. But it's like they were playing the Celtics, who are way, way better than them. And it's, when I think of the high school coach doing the high school coach antics of you guys aren't doing my system. You guys need to pass the ball 4 times or whatever. Not against a team that's way better than you. It's like, hey, coach, they're better than us. And now this report, that's all this stuff coming out of the practice and then the meeting where the players decided they would show up to the facility thanks to the urging of Robin Lopez. And in the meeting, apparently Boylen says that, Popovich pulls the guys out, and apparently a player...
I was about to
it's the best thing. Yeah, it's the best thing.
You're not Greg Popovich, my guy.
Right, I would love to know.
It's every player in that meeting, that's exactly what they all probably said out loud at the same time.
It had to be Lopez, right?
You're not Greg Popovich. You can't. I understand that you are in that culture, and Tony Parker was asked about it last night at the Knicks game, and he stressed that to do things like that, you have to build up trust with your players. Boylen just comes in, and apparently he was the quote unquote bad cop to Fred Hoiberg's good cop for the past couple of years. And so it's not like he has goodwill with these players. And to suddenly be like, I am Greg Popovich 2.0 is ludicrous. There's really no other word for it. And it'll just be really interesting to see how much longer he can stay there.
Everyone is so unanimously opposed to what seems to be going on in Chicago that part of me wonders, the anti-flow part of my personality, I want to give Boylen 1% of credit. Maybe we need to switch something up. Maybe something needs to be switched up in Chicago. I know this is painful. Using the term shock and awe as a coach is hilarious. And, we're using Desert Storm terminology. Great. That's sure to go over real well. But I almost kind of want to give Boylen a chance just based on the 100% disapproval of his methods.
Yeah, I watched the Bulls Thunder game, which the Bulls actually won that
right
on a buzzer beater by Larry Markkinen. And Wendell Carter, I think he played, don't quote me on this, but I'm pretty sure he played fewer minutes than Robin Lopez, or comparative. It was why is Robin Lopez playing? It's Jim Boylen clearly wanted to win the game. And I feel like you're not really getting it if that's your
right,
strategy.
Right.
You should be Wendell Carter. If he can't guard Steven Adams, great. That's wonderful. He's a rookie who's 19 years old. He's not really supposed to do that. So I just disagree with the logic there. I think that front office is high key the worst in the league probably. And again, getting rid of Fred Hoiberg when they did this early in the season, during a season in which nobody expected them to do anything. And it's he didn't even get to coach Markkinen, who's the best player on the team.
That was cold-blooded. It was cold-blooded. They waited till Markkinen was healthy to fire him.
Yeah. So I guess the Bulls. It's just one of those. It's the same thing with the Wizards and Ernie Grunfeld. I don't understand